15, 20 years ago. Now coding becomes like just another thing that people do. You no longer need to be an excellent coder to be an excellent engineer. And it's also going to revolutionize the juniors, because usually we used to teach them how to code in the first 2 to 3 years in the job, and now you don't need to do it anymore. We can just go straight to teaching them how to think.
Welcome to Tech Teams Today, where we talk with the people building and leading the engineering orgs behind today's most innovative companies. Today's guest is Gilad Matot, VP of R&D at Gong, where he leads a team of over 80 engineers across 3 continents. You're going to hear about how he builds and manages a big distributed team. You're going to hear about the role of culture in a high-performing organization and why he thinks AI might be overhyped. Before we dive in, if you wouldn't mind, do me a quick favor. Hit like and subscribe. It really helps make sure that other engineering leaders find this episode, and it'll make sure that you don't miss any future ones. All right, so let's start with your team, Gilad. Tell us a little bit about how it's structured right now, and how the team has changed over the past few months.
So I work in Gong. Essentially, I'm running one of the R&D divisions.
Okay.
And I think for us as a growing company, change is pretty much the constant thing. I joined the company almost 10 years ago, 9.5 years ago.
Okay.
We were 10 people at the time, so we're restructuring. As far as I'm concerned, I worked in like 5 different companies in the span of the last decade, where they all had the same name. So I think recently we've started, right now we're structured, I think, similarly to a lot of other companies, where out of the 4 divisions, we have 2 that are more application-centric.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running one of them. The third one is more of our data in, out, which is a bit unique to our business.
Yeah.
And one is a platform, which I assume most companies have some sort of variation of what we're having. I'm running an organization of about 80 people, I think, these days, based on 3 continents, Israel, New York, and Dublin. Running 2 product groups of the 2 relatively newer products in Gong. One is still not out there, and the other one is called Engage, which is the latest one we released. And the third group that I have is actually more of enterprise solutions, which is sometimes called engineering services, where this is when the roadmap timelines and our strategic customers don't necessarily meet at the same time.
Okay.
And how do we get these parts out? So that's how we're structured. I think each group is between 20 to 40 people. So a total of about 80 these days. Probably while we're hiring, and we're probably going to be about 100 by year end or next year's end. We'll see.
Yeah, and you mentioned the team is spread across 3 continents. Has that always been the case? Has Gong always been remote first, or is that a product of the pandemic?
So it's in the pandemic when we moved from office 100% to hybrid.
Okay.
But a little bit before, after the pandemic, we saw a bit of a slow in hiring in Israel. So we wanted to diversify our talent portfolio. We want to have another hub where, let's say, if there's too much competition going on in one hub, we can hire more in the other. That was the incentive to start diversifying. So we went to Dublin we started 4 years ago. We established the site about 3 years ago. And now and then the economic slowdown hit us. So it slowed down for a little while. So we made a relatively smaller site of about 10 to 15 people. But now we are regrowing it. And now I think we're at 30 something in the past year we've reached, and still hiring. And then with New York, we decided we since a lot of our customers are North America based, we want to have a little bit more of a presence, and this is where our enterprise solutions group is establishing. This one is split between Israel and New York.
Okay, and your title is VP of R&D, and you said that the teams that you lead are focused on the applications, more of the application side of the structure. Can you explain that in more detail?
Let's try. Like when we started on, everything for us is customer based. We're a customer focused company. When I interview engineers, I keep saying our job is to create value for customers. It's not to code. We do it through coding, but the job is to create value.
Awesome.
So when we started, everybody did everything. There were no infra teams or infra sections in the company. We just did it all. and like feature teams, squads, pods, everybody called it differently, and we're still structured that way.
Okay.
But now, as we grew, we started to move them to be product-based. So now every pod is working as part of product, and every one of my groups is in charge of a specific product.
Mhm.
However, not everything that a software company does is product specific. We have some things, a company called Gong, are used by all of our products, or some platform solutions, or
Yeah.
DevOps, or a lot of other things that don't suit the structure of having just a pod team or a product team. And this is where we have the other parts of the structure, where we need the shared infra, either applicative infra, let's say analytics database or analytics services. We have it in a centric group, not as part of the application, where I'm essentially serving a lot of some of the abilities that are made by other parts of the organization, and the application just does some of the development itself, and some of it's just tying everything that we have in other places in the
So,
organizational chart. I mean, it's all the same product eventually.
yeah. And you mentioned being close to the customer. Sorry, do it again. You mentioned that you really want your team to create value and to think about their job as creating value. And that's something that I've heard here on this podcast a few times already. And different leaders do it through different solutions. Some of them, expose their engineers to client interactions. They have their guys attending or attending meetings. Some of them, make them listen to sales calls, that kind of stuff. Which, I mean, for guys is actually easy. And what are the tools specifically that you use to enforce that culture of being close to the value creation part of the business?
So I think every one of our pods has a full-time PM working with it, and they're
Okay.
usually like our lead customer liaison within the team, and they're essentially the voice of the customer within the team. So all the engineers feel like they have a customer representative represent in each and every meeting. With being Gong, that we record all of our meetings, we're also encouraging people to watch calls. And every time we start with new features, we have our engineers watching calls of how we should demonstrate them to customers. And I think the fact that, like a lot of other companies, I imagine that the focus is there. People judge themselves by how much excitement that the customers showed as part of the call, how much good reviews we've got. I think it's just, this is how one of the company's operating principles is rating fans. It's not like we want them to be satisfied. We want them to be thrilled as
Okay.
much as they can from a software.
Yeah.
And surprisingly
Yeah.
enough, I was like, I'm a skeptic in my nature, but in the history of Gong, I've seen people are thrilled by things. I'm like, this is just engineering. How can you be so thrilled about it? But apparently they are when you do it correctly. And
Well,
we're also encouraging them to challenge the product team as much as they can, which I think is a lot of, and the product team really appreciates it, where they push
yeah.
back. I don't think this is valuable. I think we should be doing this, and encouraging debate while then looking at the results. And then the engineer's like, yeah, I pushed for this thing. You see, they loved it. A lot of
It's
these
awesome.
things help move the needle for them, I think, with creating customer value.
We're going to get to the chat about AI in a bit, but one thing I've heard about AI adoption is that it's blurring the lines between engineers and product professionals, right? So product guys have a lot more power in creating prototypes, and it's not necessarily blurring the lines, but it's changing how they interact. Are you seeing that? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of getting from zero to one of the product or the feature became so much easier now that their AI is there. You just do a little bit of AI, you can get like a really nice looking mock-up, or even like a almost product, like a prototype. Which now with AI, sometimes when I joined tech companies, you hire a bunch of expert engineers to do it fast. Now with AI, like you spend like a few hours with AI and you have something working really nicely. And I think that's where we see the biggest difference these days. It's less with the mature products or day 2 or day 5 of the products. It's more in the beginning. And I think it's a revolution in these parts of the product. But I also think the product takes 5% of the time to do the POC, and then 95% is the rest.
Yeah.
So on the other 95% being a skeptic, I'm saying I don't think we've seen the revolution there yet, but we are seeing a lot of advantages with AI.
Awesome. We'll get to some more questions about that in a bit. You mentioned that over these 10 years that you've been with Gong, things have changed a lot. Um, do you expect the org to change again in the near future? How do you think your org is going to look like this time next year?
I think we're hiring and growing, but I think now the engineering organization is probably around 400. Probably in a year or so will be around 600. So probably not major overhauls. Maybe we'll split the work a little bit differently. Now we have four division. Maybe we'll add a fifth. But right now I don't expect dramatic changes. Maybe a little more globally spread. Increase our presence in Europe and North America. Be a little bit more biased towards there. Grow there faster than Israel. But other than that, I think I'm not expecting a revolution in our structure in the next
Okay.
year.
And you're talking about hiring a lot of people in a year's time. And what are you seeing in the hiring market right now? Are you in terms of volume of applicants, quality of applicants, fake resumes, fake candidates, avatars taking interviews? Are those real?
Uh, I haven't seen them. Maybe anecdotally, one of our recruiters saw them, but nothing like a major presence. We're actually seeing a surge of talent in Dublin. We have a lot of applications. I think we probably have a good name as for some reason, people have heard of us, and we're seeing a lot of talented people walk in the doors, and we're interviewing like crazy and really liking the talent that we see there. I mean, we almost doubled the site, I think, in the past 6 months, and we're still going. In New York, we're still ramping up, so don't have a lot of data there yet. I mean, we have a small presence there at the moment, about 10 or so. So still ramping up. And Israel-based, I think it's good. I mean, we have a lot of people interviewing. Some are what we're looking for, some are not. But since it's a lot, it takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you, like, when you hire at scale, sometimes it's easy to relax on quality, right, and quality requirements. How have you adapted your hiring process to maintain quality as you've scaled?
So I think as we're working on pods, our hiring process is a little bit like that, where there's not a lot of emphasis on uniformity. Every pod might have their variant of how they hire people. But for me, I always ask people the same question, which is, would you hire that person to be in your team? And then I'm looking at their eyes, and if they don't reply yet a straight yes in like 1 second, okay, then I don't want that person. And I think this is how you measure quality. Like intuitively, people know. So it's not about the specific questions or the specific process. When you speak to a good engineer, I've had conversations with great engineers, like 15 minutes in, I know this guy's a superstar, or this woman is a superstar. Happen in both genders, by the way. And so when you see talent, and from what I've seen, people don't want to have substandard people next to them. And we keep reminding them gently, like if you're gonna while you're helping us hire, you're gonna hire someone not as good, you're gonna have to carry their load.
Yeah.
And engineers are like, I found that engineers really want the people around them. If you have A players, they tend to want A players around them, which I think is the biggest factor in how we can maintain our talent. And if we happen to see someone as a misfit, we try to separate ways. Maybe first we try to teach them, of course, but if someone is a misfit, we try to separate ways. And in many cases, they see it themselves and they decide to go. But we were also pretty lucky, and it didn't happen that much for us,
Okay.
percentage.
And what
Mm-hmm.
skills? What has changed in terms of the skills or experiences that you look for today? I mean, we're seeing a wave of junior devs who started their careers coding with co-pilots from day one, right? And somebody the other day at the podcast said that you're used to going into an empty window and typing int main, and somebody starts with a comment and then asks a co-pilot to implement that comment. So it's a completely different approach to things, right? And are you seeing? How do you see that? Is that an advantage? Is that a crutch? Is that something in between?
I think it's mostly an advantage, but I also think when I'm looking at whenever I looked at engineers and let's say that as part of the hiring process, we gave a home assignment, I never just looked at the code that they wrote. That was never the interesting part of the assignment. It is part of it, but the most interesting part was, okay, let's code review this together. Let's have an intelligent conversation about what's in it. And that AI can't fix for you. I mean, you can hand in the perfect assignment with AI, but then I'm going to ask you a few questions about what's in there. And then if you're not a good engineer, then you're probably going to fail that part where the conversation is. But I think as engineers, if I look at the world when I started coding like 20 plus years ago, the best engineers were the best coders.
Mhm.
I think those days are gone now. There are
Yeah,
still like parts of the industry where you have to be like a good coder, probably more when you're close you go down closer to the hardware.
yeah,
But probably everywhere that was Java like 15, 20 years ago, now coding it becomes like just another thing that people do. You no longer need to be an excellent coder to be an excellent engineer. And it's also going to revolutionize the juniors because usually we used to teach them how to code in the first 2 to 3 years in the job, and now you don't need to do it anymore. We can just go straight to teaching them how to think, which is essentially what we're paying engineers to do for years now.
exactly. They're expressing themselves through the language of code, but it's only a language, right? So it's yeah. And how about your day to day? Like, has AI changed your day to day as a VP of engineering?
Not, I mean, very little because I think most of my job is taking care of the team,
Okay.
and AI can't really do it for me. It can't have a one-on-one with one of my leaders. It can't check up on one of my teams and see how they're going. I tried it really hard. It doesn't work the corridors of the company instead of me and say hi to people, which is a bigger part of the job than people think. Just being present for your team. And I think AI is still years from replacing that. And I think that's most of the job. The higher you go, the further you are from the actual technology. It's more about direction and relationships and guidance. And AI can help a little bit with my day-to-day tasks, but not and a lot of preparation or of things that becomes easier. But most of the job, which is I think 70% or so, is people based. My calendar is full. AI doesn't help with that. It does schedule meetings better, but it can't run them for me. You can get notes or things like that where it can help, but it's more side benefits than the essence of the job.
And I love that. Being 100%, 120% of an engineering leader's job is people, right? And and how has remote and how has the distributed setup changed that? You talk about roaming the corridors. So how do you technically how do you in theory you roam the corridors in a distributed org?
So when COVID struck,
Yeah.
you could see me in a compilation error on a human face for about a month because I was then a bit lower in the organization. I was running like 10 people, and since I'm not a very structured person, I'm very intuitive. Most of my management by then we were every day in the office. No, hybrid wasn't a thing then yet. I would just walk around the corridors, talk to some people, and know everything that was going on. And then COVID struck, and we were all working from home, and all of my knowledge pipes got cut in one day. And then uh, after a few weeks, I'm like, okay, I don't know everything anymore. Yet things still seem to be happening. Everything is pretty roughly okay. We're still making progress. So maybe I didn't need to do that much of my knowledge, and that forced me a little bit to let go, which I think is something I'm benefiting a lot in my current role because I can resist the urge of diving into things because I saw that the benefit there is less than you think
Yeah.
in many cases. So now it's more about conversations and the people. And if you're running an organization of 80 and I have two layers below me, I have to trust them. I mean, you need to have to trust your team leads to work with the engineers on a day-to-day and make sure that we're working on the right things. And what I've learned is if you know that your people are working on the right things, that's like 90% of the job. Because if they did it wrong, we can just fix it. But if they worked on the wrong thing, we have nothing when they're done. So this is where I put the emphasis. Make sure that everybody knows what we're doing and why, and reinforce it every time that we speak with each other, that we're still heading in the same direction. Because we can always fix little mistakes, but big mistakes or doing the wrong things, you just need to redo them, and then you're losing a lot of time.
Yeah, I once told somebody that, there's two things a leader must do. One, get the right people in, and two, make sure that those people who are capable because you got the right people in, they're doing the things that they should be doing, right? And then the person who was speaking to me said, "But how about culture? Like you can do one and two, but still have a place with a very bad or toxic or weak culture. Do you intentionally um, try to instill the right culture into your teams? And if so, how do you do that?"
So I think I do, and I think
Okay.
a lot of it is there was an old story about an experiment. I don't know if they really ran it or not, with monkeys and a banana and a letter in the middle,
Yeah. Yeah, I know that.
and then where the monkeys, when they were beating up the monkey going up for the banana because they were getting sprayed with cold water. And then they switched all of the monkeys, and then none of the monkeys still went up. That's a little bit of a culture of how you can instill culture. So I think if you do it right in the beginning, you save a lot of work during the days, like the years after. And I think we were lucky to get it really right in the beginning, like being customer centric, being encourage debate, but we're still being on the same team. And once you have that and people have each other's back and it's truly a team effort, and then you see people walking in and they look at it and they like it. So they immediately emulate it because they see it's nice. And I had a person, I worked with a person in a previous company before a decade ago, and that company was struggling. I was only there for a few months, and I saw that person like really behaving in ways that were, I don't want to say unacceptable, but unlikable to me. Like having like debates, not in a good way, with some of the people in the company. And then and we hired that person in my company. And I'm like, look, I have only seen him in a struggling company for a few months. Somebody else worked with him after and said they were amazing. And I have not, it seems like two different people. I mean,
Hmm.
it's the same person. I know I can look at him. It's the same person. I've checked. It's the same, completely different behavior. And I think this is when you get it right. And he's like, it's so much fun here. I don't have to fight with everyone or with anyone. Like people here actually work with me. He felt like no one was working with him, so he was arguing a lot. And you could argue that I mean, I was there. There's a reason I left after a few months. That company. Don't look for it on my LinkedIn. I moved because I don't want to say their name and I want to ruin their reputation. It was also over a decade ago, so maybe it doesn't matter anymore. But same person, just two different cultures, completely different behaviors.
Wow. All right. On that, I want to shift gears here and talk a little bit about the role of a leader, right? And um, we discussed a lot of, we spoke a lot about change, right? And engineering leaders, they are facing a lot of change. So it's AI, it's remote work, it's economic downturn, and then economic bubbles, um, do you have examples of occasions when you had to adjust your leadership style through these changes and how you did it? I know you told the story about going compilation error during COVID, but any other examples?
So I think the essence of being there for your people is always the same.
Okay.
But but when you're facing different challenges, I mean, sometimes you have to the trade-offs between quality and speed and things like that. They often change depending on what you're working on, and that's also a cultural change. I mean, people who were used to working fast to ship fast because people really love their new capabilities, and the customer with less quality or stability, mindful. Now you need to change that. So I don't know if it's quite of a leadership, it's somewhere between leadership and culture or the emphasis of the team. Where when we worked in the early days and we were essentially replacing nothing, people were asking me, how do you do QA? And I was answering only partially joking, like, people pay me good money to do QA for me, meaning the customers. Because the
Yeah.
customers then were so eager to get the new thing where they're like, we're okay with bugs in the beginning. Just give it to us so we can enjoy it like 80%. We know we've been with you long enough. We know that in a few weeks it's going to be working good enough for us, but we'd rather get it early. And then when we were working on something that's a critical business workflow, with the same mindset, the customers were not as forgiving in those areas, because if you need to pick up the phone and there's no dial tone, you just can't work. So we've learned to really make sure the engineers are aware where we should be on the trade-off and add new tools. So when we want to increase quality, and then being customer centric and creating value, it moved our culture to be a bit too much of a feature driven, or it wasn't too much because it was really successful. But as we moved to be more of a critical software, we're like, okay, we'll slow down the velocity of the features because we care more about UX, about quality, about stability. And that's how we changed through the years. I think a lot of organizations, as they see success, find that, okay, now we're switching a bit. It's not that we want to slow down, but we want to do more things, that the byproduct is slowing down a bit the feature development, which is, I think, the stage we're at now. And with our, let's say, the project that we launched 2 or 3 years ago, we started with like, let's get it out. Okay, now let's get it fixed. Now let's fix the UX. Let's work on performance issues. We still do. But the balance between new stuff and taking care of what's already out there changed.
Yeah.
And
I really like the concept that being there for people does not, right, does not change. I think that's really powerful. And like a lot of our viewers are individual contributors who want to at some point go into a leadership role. Um, what advice would you give an engineer who's thinking about making that move?
first of all, be sure that you actually want to.
Okay.
I have a lot of engineers in my team who are seniors. They've been engineers for 20 or 30 years. Some of them have tried leadership roles. Some haven't. And they're like, I don't want to do it. So don't do it because you think you should. Do it because you think you're going to like it. The money difference isn't big enough to be worth miserable day to day.
Yeah.
That's the first piece of advice. Second, be willing to let go. The higher you go up the ranks, the further you get away from technology and code. You still do the strategic parts, but you can't code anymore. If you love coding, don't go. You as a team lead, you can still code, but if you go one more level up, that's it. I think you'll be able to code in your nights or in your free time, not during working hours, because you need to be there for the team. For me, what got me into leadership was when I realized that I'm enjoying one of my team members' features as much as I enjoy my own. So as a team lead, I could get more joy because I could be involved in more stuff being
More.
released. So that's one thing. And maybe the other thing, work on your communication and your peers. If it doesn't work well with your peers right now, there's no way they're going to let you lead them, or people like them are going to let you lead them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very common for people to just um, aspire to stepping into those roles just because, right? And I think that it's really important to be thoughtful about that. I like those three
Right.
those three pieces of advice.
I can give
Um,
you one more, actually.
yeah, go ahead.
Give it a shot. You can always go back. You
That's really
don't
good.
have to stay a leader. If you figure, I have a bunch of team people in me that they tried it, say, I don't like it, I want to go back, and they have.
Yep. Yeah, it's happened with us here at Ravello. It happens with people at companies that we know. I think it's really good to have a leader who understands that. It's not that common though. As you go into larger and larger orgs, it kind of gets dispersonalized and you either do it or don't, right? So yeah, it's a privilege to be in an org that allows that kind of flexibility. Um, Gilad, if you had to share a contrarian take, a point of view that you have that kind of goes against the grain of best practices and that most engineers or engineering leaders they might disagree with, what do you think that take would be?
First of all, maybe I think AI is a bit overhyped at the moment.
Okay.
So that could be contrarian.
And
I
that's
think it's
becoming less and less contrarian, but anyways, yeah.
so I do think it's amazing, but if you want, I can give you that. I don't know if that's contrarian or not. I never believed in unit tests ever,
No. Oh, wow. Okay.
ever. I always thought it's a waste of time because I'm like, you have so many other tests that will
Why?
find the bug before production anyway. It's just a waste of time to create unit tests. But
Yeah.
even I think the early days when we experimented on our customers, it was pretty revolutionary back then. Where essentially we were saying, okay, we're going to ship. The customers are going to be part of our quality efforts. People who joined the company those days were like, you can't do it. This is not what engineers do. What are you doing here? You're experimenting on people. So that was a bit contrarian. We're doing it a lot less these days. I mean, it was different times and different product. But even willing to consider that might be a bit of a contrarian take, I think.
Yeah. All right. So let's do a quick fire to close. What's the favorite tool that your team can't live without?
I think Copilot now becomes
It's okay.
everybody's now addicted to see what it can do.
Awesome. And what's the best leadership advice you've ever received?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes,
Awesome.
and
And
encourage your people
finally,
not to be afraid, of course, of making mistakes. My leaders encouraged me not to be afraid of mistakes. So
awesome. And how can our listeners follow you? Are you on Twitter, on LinkedIn? Where can they reach out?
it's they gonna be have a hard time because I'm pretty quiet and on the net. I have
Okay.
a LinkedIn profile, but it's pretty quiet. But if they want to
Awesome. So
reach out,
this
I'm responsive.
that makes our content even more precious because it's one of the rare opportunities for them to hear from you. That's awesome. Gilad, thanks so much for your time. This has been amazing. This has been really easy and a great conversation. Hope you enjoyed it as well.
Yes, I'm hoping someone will find it useful.
That was Gilad Matot, VP of R&D at Gong. If you found this helpful, follow Tech Teams Today wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating or comment with your favorite takeaway and share it with another engineering leader who'd get value from it. Tech Teams Today is brought to you by Ravello, helping U.S. companies find, hire, and pay full-time engineers based in Latin America. Vetted, time zone aligned, and ready to start shipping code. I'm Lucas Mendes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.